I'm trying to think of the corporate scene, and I'm struggling to really pinpoint what I would call leaders who have transcended just their title and have moved to the realm of authority.
Yeah.
They're there, but we could do more.
I just think, the sort of business leaders tend not to speak out of any, if it's not about their business, then you don't hear from them. And yet they actually do command authority and respect. And so, I think, it's the responsibility of business leaders to also be able to speak on other issues.
Yes.
And you're right, we don't have enough. I wonder why that is, though.
Well, I think part of it is also cultural.
Yeah.
And those are, I guess, that is part of what you have been trying to do over the past couple of years to just move us from the trap of culture. You find that within the African culture, we don't tell our stories much. We do quite a lot. We have achieved so much, but we kind of shy away from discussing.
So somebody else is telling our
story.
So
somebody else is telling your story. And I found this as a challenge, even when speech coaching leaders who are supposed to go and speak at an international platform outside of the African context, that it's still a struggle to tell them, you can tell your own story, you can say how great you are and how good you have been to your organization. So part of it is culture, and I guess we need to learn to be able to celebrate our own successes and be able to tell them, of course, tempered with a sense of humility.
Of course, yeah.
But it is important. It's
and I think there are lots of. Africa has this huge number of youth. That could either be a huge blessing or a curse. But we have a window in which we can inspire them. And I do think that young people on the continent don't have enough African role models to look to. And so I do think it's really important that the people that have have achieved so much on the continent do tell their stories, because they're inspiring the young Africans to say, we too can not only get there, but we can surpass what they've done.
Yeah.
So if we don't tell our stories, we're actually not helping a whole generation of young people.
I agree with you, and that is something that concerns, because part of authority, as you move on from, as you develop and grow along the journey of leadership and growing your authority, you reach a phase called legacy.
Exactly.
And the phase of legacy is really about also the next generation.
Yeah,
and I think it's an area that we need to be more deliberate on, and just be willing to pass on something to the next generation. Give them hope.
Exactly.
Give them a place to aspire towards, and that's how we develop.
And I think that's what we're trying to do in this series that we have now on Shaping African Conversations, is to actually get people to tell their stories, but to also, speak to the young people out there to say, you've got to come up and you've got to take your seat at the table.
Yes.
Because if we don't, no one's going to invite us. We just have to take our seat and make a difference, because we have this huge population of young people, and we have to impact them somehow.
Yeah.
And I think it's the responsibility of each one of us in our own different areas of influence to actually do that. And what about, if we were talking to a young person that is sort of just starting out, to say, well, how can I be a brand? And I know, I've been talking in the last few weeks about my own journey 20 years ago of, starting a business named after my name, which at that time was, quite strange. But what would you say to a young person that the fact that each one of us is actually now a brand? What would you say to them?
Well, I would say, once you've identified what you want to do, what you stand for, and you've invested in getting the requisite knowledge to help you along that path, then the next conversation should be, how do you tell the whole world no, what you stand for and who you are, and that is where I guess the whole aspect of branding will come in, and it transcends just your technical competencies. It looks at the totality of what you stand for. What is your philosophy? What are your ideals? Are you authentic about what you claim to be, and are you ethical about how you go about what you're doing? Because you and I have been in business, you know that ethics very, very important, you know, that's and so once you have that in place, then there's a role of communicating that, and before you even get to various mediums of communicating who you believe that you are, you need to know who you are.
Exactly. Look at introspect first to figure out,
and then go ahead. Ensure that there's congruence between your actions and what you claim your brand is. That is what I would tell a young person who's
there's often such a disconnect though.
Yeah, there is a disconnect. And everything has to add up. What you post on certain mediums, a lot of the young people are now using social media, which is a good way to get your message out across to the world. Well, ensure that there's congruence between what that is and what and who you claim to be, and even what your business really does stand for.
I mean, just from somebody that has you had my name in a brand for a long time, I think for me, I always tell young people, be you, because no one can do you quite like you, and then people say to me all the time, oh, I want to be like you. And I'm like, no, you don't. Actually, you want to be just like you.
Yes.
Because you know what? It's so much easier. It's so much easier when you're putting your brand across, and it's just who you are. You don't have to pretend, you don't have to act, or you don't have to do any polishing, because that is who you are. And I think when you're authentic to who you are, then your whole brand just becomes a lot easier, because you're not pretending or trying to be anybody else. And I think that's very, very important. We have too many, people that want to copy, or, I want to do what she does, and I want to. I think if you just do what you do and what you do best, it just makes life a whole lot easier. And that's for the 20 years, all I've done is be me.
Yeah, and especially for the young person who is in Africa, there's a lot of uncharted
Absolutely.
grounds, and that then calls for just authenticity, charting your course and following through. I know things don't always work the way we expect them to work, but that is life.
And you know what? It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. I think that's what the 20 years has made me realize that actually it's been a marathon. It's really, and there's been failures, and and that's fine. We just get up again and move on.